The stars looked beautiful from the bridge of the eternal flame. Prince Vorin stood with his hands behind his back, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the view screen. It was a pretty world, he thought. Green forests, deep oceans, white clouds floating across its surface. The humans had named it Earth 7. It was their newest colony. It was built only 50 years ago. Soon, it would belong to the Kalari Empire. Vorin was young for a prince, only 130 years old. His silver skin caught the light from the screens around him. His eyes, pale like moonlight, showed no fear. Why would they? He had brought the largest invasion force in recent imperial history. 300,000 of the finest Kalari warriors waited in the ships behind him. They had conquered 47 species across the galaxy. They had never lost a war. The humans would be number 48. "My prince," said Lord Theron, stepping forward with a data tablet in his long fingers. Theron was old, nearly 800 years. He had served 3 emperors and watched countless worlds burn. "We have completed our scans of the planet." Vorin did not turn around. "Tell me about their defenses." "Colony has approximately 200,000 civilians," Theron said, reading from the tablet. "We have detected 8,000 military personnel on the surface. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours. Projectile-based firearms, chemical explosives, simple vehicles. Nothing that can threaten our shields or armor," Vorin smiled. 8,000 soldiers against 300,000. This will not even be a battle. It will be a demonstration. "Indeed, my prince. Victory is certain." The prince finally turned around. His silver cape flowed behind him like liquid metal. He looked at Theron with cold confidence. "My father gave me this mission to prove myself worthy of the throne. When we return with this world under our flag, no one will question my right to rule." Theron bowed his head. "The Empire will sing songs of your glory." Far below, on the surface of Earth 7, things were very different. Captain Kim Tai-ho stood on a rocky hill, looking up at the sky through his binoculars. He could see them now, hundreds of dark shapes moving through the clouds. The alien ships were beginning their descent. They would land within the hour. "How many ships do you count?" asked Lieutenant Park Yuna, standing beside him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Nothing seemed to scare her. "Stop counting at 200, Tai-ho replied. He lowered his binoculars and looked at his second-in-command. "Intelligence says they're bringing 300,000 ground troops." Yuna did not react. She simply nodded. "And we have 8,000. 8,000 scouts," Tai-ho corrected her. "We're not even real soldiers. We're reconnaissance." This was true. Scout Unit 7 was never meant to fight a war. Their job was to explore, to gather information, to watch and report. They were trained to move quietly, to hide, to survive in any environment. They were not trained to stop an invasion, but the main military force was 12 days away. The colony had sent emergency signals when the alien fleet appeared, but help would not arrive in time. Someone had to slow the enemy down. That someone was them. Tai-ho turned to face his officers. Sergeant Lee Sun-woo stood with his arms crossed, his face hard like stone. Corporal Han Min-ho was checking his knife for the 10th time. Sergeant Yoon Do-yeon was speaking quietly into his radio, coordinating with teams spread across the region. Medik Choi-nari was organizing her supplies. Private Baek Ji-woo was drawing something in the dirt with a stick, probably another demolition plan. They were not an army, but they were all he had. "Listen carefully," Tai-ho said, and everyone stopped to look at him. "We cannot win this fight. We all know that. 300,000 against 8,000 is not a battle we can win with strength." No one argued. They knew the math. "But we don't need to win," Tai-ho continued. "We need to delay. We need to hurt them. We need to make them bleed so badly that by the time our real army arrives, there's nothing left for them to fight." Sun-woo spoke up. "What's the plan, Captain?" Tai-ho smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a hunter. "We fight our way, not theirs. These aliens have conquered dozens of worlds with their big armies and their fancy technology. They fight in formations. They follow rules. They believe in honor and glory." He paused and looked at each of his soldiers in turn. "We believe in winning, by any means necessary. The Kaleri dropships landed at dawn. The sound was like thunder rolling across the mountains. Silver vessels, each one carrying 1,000 warriors, touched down in the Great Plains east of the main colony. The doors opened, and the soldiers marched out in perfect lines. They were impressive creatures, tall, with silver skin and 4 arms. Their armor was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Their weapons glowed with blue plasma energy. Each one was trained from birth to fight. Each one had killed before. Commander Vrex led the ground forces. He was a veteran of 15 wars, with scars on his face to prove it. He looked at the peaceful landscape around him and felt almost disappointed. "Where are the humans?" he asked his lieutenant. "Our scans show no military activity in this area, Commander. They appear to be defending the colony center, 30 kilometers north." Rex laughed. "They're hiding behind their walls. Cowards. Begin the advance. We will crush them before sunset." The Kalari army began to move. 300,000 soldiers marching in perfect formation, their boots shaking the ground. They expected resistance. They expected defensive lines and desperate last stands. They did not expect the ground to explode beneath them. The first blast killed 300 soldiers instantly. Then another, and another. Hidden charges buried days ago by human infiltration teams erupted across the plains. The perfect formations became chaos in seconds. Commander Vrex screamed orders, but no one could hear him over the explosions. Then the gunfire started. From the hills. From the trees. From positions so well hidden that the cavalry couldn't even see their attackers. Soldiers fell. Officers died. Communication equipment exploded as hidden snipers targeted anything that looked important. On his ship in orbit, Prince Vorin watched the battle reports with growing confusion. Numbers flashed across his screens, casualty counts that made no sense. 10,000 dead in the first hour, he said, his voice rising. How is this possible? Lord Theron's face was pale. The humans are not fighting like soldiers, my prince. They are fighting like animals. They attack and disappear. We cannot find them. We cannot predict them. Vorin slammed his fist against the console. We have 300,000 warriors. They have 8,000. Find them and destroy them. Far below, Captain Kim Taiho watched another Kaleri battalion walk into a minefield. He spoke calmly into his radio. All teams, continue harassment operations. Do not engage directly. Hit them and move. Make them fear every step. Lieutenant Park Yuna appeared beside him, her rifle smoking from recent fire. They've stopped advancing. Good, Taiho said. Day 1, and they're already scared. He looked up at the sky, where the alien flagship orbited somewhere above the clouds. 12 days until our army arrives. Let's see how many of them are still alive by then. The real battle had just begun. The sun rose over Earth 7, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It should have been a beautiful morning. Instead, the air smelled like smoke and death. Fires burned across the plains where the Kaleri army had landed. Bodies lay in the grass, silver skin reflecting the early light. Commander Vrex had not slept. His eyes were red and tired, but his anger kept him awake. He stood in his command tent, surrounded by officers who looked just as exhausted as he felt. Give me the numbers, he demanded. His lieutenant spoke carefully. We lost 42,000 soldiers in the first 12 hours, Commander. Another 8,000 are wounded. Our supply convoy was destroyed during the night. Someone placed explosives under the vehicles. Vrex felt his blood turn cold. 50,000 casualties. Against 8,000 humans? It was impossible. It was shameful. How? He asked. How are they doing this? No one had an answer. 2 kilometers away, Captain Kim Tai-ho was eating breakfast. It was simple food, dried rice, and some preserved vegetables. He sat on a rock and chewed slowly, watching the smoke rise from the Kalari camp through his binoculars. They're not moving, Lieutenant Park Yuna reported, walking up beside him. Our night attacks worked. They're too scared to advance. Eho nodded. Good. Scared enemies make mistakes. What's our status? Yuna checked her tablet. We lost 18 soldiers last night, mostly from return fire during hit-and-run attacks. Another 37 wounded. Medic Choi is working on them now. 18 dead. Taiho felt the weight of each number. These were his people. His responsibility, but he could not show sadness now. A leader had to be strong. Prepare the next phase, he said. If they won't come to us, we'll go to them. Sergeant Lee Sunwoo was a patient man. He had been lying in the same position for 6 hours, hidden under a blanket of leaves and mud. His rifle was pointed at the Kaleri camp below. He barely breathed. He barely moved. He was invisible. The aliens walked past his hiding spot many times. They never saw him. Human scouts were trained to disappear. They could become part of the environment, like ghosts made of flesh and blood. Sunwoo watched through his scope. He was waiting for a target. Not just any target. He wanted officers. He wanted the aliens to lose their leaders, one by one. Finally, he saw his opportunity. A tall Kaleri with decorated armor stepped out of a tent. Gold markings on his chest showed his higher rank. He was speaking to other soldiers, pointing at a map, giving orders. Sunwoo breathed out slowly. His finger touched the trigger. One shot. The officer fell. Then Sunwoo moved. He crawled backward through the mud, silent as a snake. By the time the Kaleri soldiers found their dead commander, the human sniper was already gone. This scene repeated itself across the entire front line. Human scouts hidden in trees, under rocks, inside abandoned buildings. Each one waited for the perfect moment. Each one took their shot and disappeared by noon. The Kaleri had lost 47 officers. Prince Vorin watched the reports come in with growing horror. He sat in his throne on the eternal flame, but he no longer felt like a conqueror. He felt like prey. They killed another general, Lord Theron said quietly. That makes 12 generals dead in 2 days. Vorin gripped the arms of his throne until his knuckles turned white. Send the elite guard. Our best soldiers. I want these human insects crushed, Theron hesitated. My prince, perhaps we should request reinforcements from the homeworld. These humans are not fighting like any enemy we have faced before. Reinforcements. Vorin's voice was sharp with anger. I came here with 300,000 soldiers to conquer a small colony. If I ask my father for help now, I will be the joke of the empire. No. We will win this ourselves. On the ground, the elite guard moved forward. 5,000 of the empire's finest warriors. Each one had been trained since childhood. Each one had killed dozens of enemies in previous wars. They wore heavier armor and carried more powerful weapons than regular soldiers. They marched into the forest where the human attacks seemed to come from. They moved carefully, watching every shadow. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. Corporal Han Minho was waiting for them. He and his 4-person team had been hiding in the forest for 2 days, eating cold food and sleeping in shifts. They knew the elite guard was coming. Human scouts had spotted them leaving camp that morning. Minho spoke into his radio. They're entering Zone 7. Spring the trap. The first explosion came from the trees. Not from the ground, but from above. The humans had placed charges in the branches designed to rain fire and metal down on anyone below. The elite guard's formation broke as soldiers dove for cover. Then came the second wave. Tripwires, connected to grenades. Hidden pits with sharp stakes at the bottom. Poison gas released from buried containers. The elite guard had trained to fight armies. They had not trained to fight the forest itself. Private Beek Ji-woo watched from a safe distance, her detonator in hand. She was young, only 23, but she had a gift for destruction. She understood explosives like a musician understood music. Every charge was placed perfectly. Every explosion happened exactly when and where she wanted it. Beautiful, she whispered, as another blast lit up the forest. By the end of the day, the elite guard had been reduced to half its original number. The survivors retreated in disgrace. Many of them would never fight again, not because of physical wounds, but because their minds were broken. They had seen too much death. They had faced an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere and kill without mercy. That night, Prince Vorin sat alone in his chambers. He stared at the wall, seeing nothing. The conquest that was supposed to make him famous was turning into a disaster. His army was bleeding. His generals were dying. And he still had not even seen the human defenders with his own eyes. There was a knock at his door. It was Lord Theron. "What now?" Vorin asked, his voice tired. Theron entered slowly. His face was troubled. "I have been studying the intelligence reports, my prince. I believe I have discovered something important about the humans we are fighting. Tell me." Theron took a deep breath. "They are not the colony's main defense force. They are not regular soldiers at all. According to our intercepts, they are designated as Scout Unit 7. Their purpose is reconnaissance and information gathering." Vorin stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the 8,000 humans destroying our army are not soldiers. They are scouts. They were sent here to explore and report. Fighting is not their main job." The prince felt cold. If these are just scouts, then where is their real army? Theron looked at the floor. "Coming, my prince. Our long-range sensors detected a fleet 12 days away, 2 million soldiers, 50 warships. We are fighting a delay force." Vorin closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood what true fear felt like. "We need to win quickly," he said, "before their reinforcements arrive." But deep in his heart, the prince was beginning to wonder if winning was even possible. Far away, in a hidden cave in the mountains, Captain Kim Tai-ho was receiving his own report. He listened carefully, then nodded. "They know about the fleet," Lieutenant Yuna said. "They'll push harder now," Good Tai-ho replied. "Desperate enemies are dangerous, but they're also predictable. Prepare the next surprise. We're going to show them what human scouts can really do." The second day ended with the Kaleri, down 100,000 soldiers, and the real nightmare was just beginning. Night on Earth 7 was dark. The planet had 2 small moons, but they gave little light. When the sun went down, the world became a place of shadows. This was when the humans hunted best. The Kaleri soldiers sat around their campfires trying to find comfort in the light. They spoke in whispers now. No one wanted to speak too loudly. The humans might hear. "Did you hear what happened to 3rd Battalion?" One soldier asked his friend. Heard, the other replied. "They sent 100 soldiers to patrol the forest. Only 12 came back. The rest just disappeared." Disappeared. Gone. No bodies. No blood. Just gone. Fear was spreading through the Kaleri army like a disease. These were warriors who had conquered worlds, who had faced death many times. But they had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy they could not see. An enemy that struck from the darkness and vanished like smoke. Lieutenant Park Yuna moved through the night like a ghost. She wore dark clothing that blended with the shadows. Her face was painted black. Her footsteps made no sound. Behind her, 20 scouts followed in perfect silence. They had practiced this many times. Moving at night without making noise was an art, and they were masters. Yuna raised her hand. Everyone stopped. Ahead, she could see the edge of the Kaleri camp. Guards stood at their posts, holding glowing plasma weapons. They looked nervous, jumping at every small sound. Good, Yuna thought. Fear makes people careless. She gave hand signals to her team. They split up, each small group moving toward a different target. Tonight was about sending a message. Tonight was about making the Kaleri understand that they would never be safe. Soldier Kellogg stood at his guard post, trying to stay awake. His forearms held his weapon tightly. His eyes scanned the darkness beyond the camp lights. Nothing moved, but that did not make him feel better. "I hate this planet," he muttered to himself. "I hate these humans." A sound came from his left. A small sound, like a branch breaking. Kellogg turned quickly, weapon ready. Nothing. He waited for a long moment, then slowly relaxed. Just an animal, probably. This planet had many animals. He turned back to face forward, and found himself looking at a human face. Only inches away, Kellic tried to scream, but a hand covered his mouth. Something sharp touched his throat. Then the world went dark. Private Song Yunbi lowered the guard's body to the ground quietly. She cleaned her blade on the grass and moved on. She was the youngest member of Scout Unit 7, only 19 years old. But she had killed more enemies this week than most soldiers killed in their entire careers. She felt nothing. There was no time for feelings. There was only the mission. Across the camp, similar scenes played out. Guards fell silent, one by one. Tents were entered, and officers died in their sleep. Supply containers were poisoned. Weapons were sabotaged. Communication equipment was destroyed, and always messages were left behind. Words carved into trees, painted on rocks, written in the dirt. Go home. We see you. You will all die here. When morning came, the Quarry Army woke to find that 57 soldiers had died during the night. Not in battle. Not in explosions. They had simply been killed in their beds, in their guard posts, in their tents. Commander Vrex looked at the messages left by the humans. His hands were shaking. He had led armies across a dozen worlds. He had never felt fear like this. They were inside our camp, he said, his voice barely a whisper. They walked among us while we slept. They could have killed us all, his lieutenant nodded slowly. What are your orders, Commander? Rex did not answer immediately. He looked at the soldiers around him. They were scared. Their eyes showed it. These mighty warriors, these conquerors of worlds, were afraid of an enemy they had never clearly seen. Triple the guards, he finally said. No one sleeps alone. All soldiers stay in groups of 10 or more. And hesitated. Contact Prince Vorin. Tell him we need different tactics. Down the eternal flame. Prince Vorin received the message. He stood before the communication screen, watching Commander Vrex's tired face with disgust. You are telling me that 57 soldiers died in one night? The prince demanded. Inside a camp of 200,000? The humans are not like other enemies, my prince, Vrex replied. They do not fight with honor. They sneak. They hide. They kill in the darkness, like demons. Demons. Vorin laughed, but there was no humor in it. They are primitive creatures with simple weapons. You outnumber them 30 to 1. Why can you not simply crush them? Vrex lowered his eyes. Because we cannot find them, my prince. They attack and disappear. Our sensors cannot track them. Our patrols cannot catch them. It is as if they become invisible. Lord Theron stepped forward. He had been listening quietly from the corner of the room. My prince, if I may speak? Vorin waved his hand impatiently. Speak. I have been researching human military history, Theron said. They have a long tradition of what they call guerrilla warfare. Small groups of fighters attacking larger armies through surprise and deception. Their history is full of such tactics. They've defeated many larger enemies this way. So what do you suggest? Vorin asked. We have two choices, Theron replied. We can retreat to our ships and bombard the planet from orbit, destroying the colony entirely. Or we can accept that this will not be a quick victory and settle in for a long, difficult campaign. Vorin's face twisted with anger. Destroy the colony. My father sent me to conquer it, not to burn it. And a long campaign. The human fleet arrives in 10 days. We do not have time for a long campaign. Then I do not know what to suggest, my prince. Vorin turned away from them both. He stared out the window at the planet below. Somewhere down there, 8,000 humans were making fools of his empire. 8,000 scouts who should have been crushed in the first hour. Send in everything, he said quietly. All of our forces. Tomorrow, we advance on the main colony. No more careful patrols. No more small attacks. We march with 200,000 soldiers in one massive wave. They cannot stop all of us. Captain Kim Tai-ho received intelligence about the enemy's plan within hours. Human scouts had captured a Kolari communications device and decoded the messages. They knew the attack was coming. 200,000 soldiers in one push, Lieutenant Yuna said, studying the map. That's a lot of targets. Tai-ho nodded. They're getting desperate. Desperate is good, but we need to be careful. A cornered animal fights hardest. Sunwoo, how are our defensive positions? Sergeant Lee Sunwoo pointed at the map. We've prepared 3 lines of traps between here and the colony. Minefields, pitfall traps, hidden explosives. The terrain forces them through narrow valleys. Perfect for ambush. Casualties estimate? Sunwoo thought for a moment. If everything works perfectly, maybe we can stop 50,000. But the rest will get through. Then we slow them down as much as possible, Taiho said. Every hour counts. Every dead enemy soldier is one less for our fleet to fight when they arrive. He looked around at his officers. They were tired. They were hurt. Many of them had lost friends in the past few days, but none of them showed any sign of giving up. Get some rest tonight, Taiho ordered. Tomorrow is going to be the biggest day of this fight. I need everyone sharp and ready. As his officers left, Taiho sat alone with the map. He traced the paths the enemy would take, imagined the battles that would come. 8,000 against 200,000. The math still looked impossible, but math did not account for determination. Math did not account for the human will to survive, and math definitely did not account for what humans would do when their homes and families were in danger tomorrow. The Kaleri would learn that lesson the hard way. The ground shook as 200,000 Kaleri soldiers marched forward. It was the largest single advance in the history of their invasion. Rows upon rows of silver-skinned warriors stretched across the landscape like a metal sea. Their boots made thunder. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Prince Vorin watched from his flagship in orbit. Today, he would crush the humans once and for all. Today, his glory would be restored. Captain Kim Taiho watched from a hilltop through his binoculars. He had never seen so many enemies in one place. The Kaleri army covered the entire valley below. They moved slowly but steadily, checking for traps, learning from their earlier mistakes. They're being careful, Lieutenant Park Yuna observed. Careful won't help them, Taiho replied. He raised his radio. All teams, prepare for Phase 1. Wait for my signal. The Kaleri army entered the first valley. It was a narrow passage between 2 steep hills, the only way forward. They sent scouts ahead, looking for traps. The scouts found nothing. That was because the traps were not on the ground, now Taiho said into his radio. Explosions erupted from the hillsides. Not from below, but from above. Rocks and debris rained down on the army. Soldiers were crushed. Formations were broken. The narrow valley became a death trap as boulders rolled down the slopes. The Kaleri commanders screamed orders to retreat, but retreating was not easy. The soldiers behind pushed forward, not knowing what was happening ahead. The valley became crowded, chaotic. More explosions followed. Corporal Han Minho led his team through the chaos. They wore captured Kaleri cloaks over their armor, moving through the confusion unseen. Their mission was simple but deadly. They targeted officers. They targeted communication equipment. They planted more explosives for later. By the time the Kaleri army escaped the valley, they had lost 30,000 soldiers. And they had not even reached the first defensive line. Commander Vrex stood in the middle of his broken army, screaming orders that no one seemed to follow. His communication system was damaged. Half his officers were dead. The soldiers around him were scared, confused, and starting to lose hope. Forward, he shouted. We must move forward. The colony is only 20 kilometers away. But 20 kilometers might as well have been 20,000. Every step brought more death. Hidden snipers picked off soldiers from impossible distances. Mines exploded under their feet. Tripwires triggered storms of shrapnel. The beautiful landscape of Earth 7 had become a killing field. Private Beak, Gi, was having the busiest day of her life. She moved from position to position, detonating charges she had placed days ago. Each explosion killed dozens of enemies. Each blast created more chaos. Guwu, you need to pull back, Sergeant Yoon Doyan said over the radio. The main group is getting too close to your position. Just one more, Jiwoo replied, pressing another button on her detonator. An explosion lit up the sky a kilometer away. Okay, now I'm moving. She ran through the forest, quick and silent. A squad of Kaleri soldiers spotted her and gave chase. But Jiwoo knew this forest. She had lived in it for 2 weeks, learning every tree, every rock, every hiding place. She led the soldiers straight into a minefield. The Kalari advance continued. But it was no longer a march. It was a crawl. Every 100 meters cost them 1,000 lives. Every hour brought new horrors. By sunset, they had traveled only 8 kilometers. They had lost another 40,000 soldiers, and they were no closer to breaking the human defense. That night, Prince Vorin made a decision that would haunt him forever. "Retreat," he ordered. "Pull back to the landing zone." Lord Theron looked at him with surprise. "My prince, we still have 150,000 soldiers. We can still win." "Can we?" Vorin asked. His voice was empty. "We have lost half our army in 5 days. Half against 8,000 enemies. At this rate, we will have no army left before we ever reach the colony." He sat down heavily in his throne. He looked old, tired, broken. "Order the retreat. We will return to our ships and reconsider our strategy." The order went out. The Kaleri army began to pull back. Soldiers who had expected to conquer a world now walked in shame toward their landing zone. Many were wounded. Many were traumatized. All were defeated. But the humans were not finished. Captain Kim Tae-ho received news of the retreat with a cold smile. "They're running," he said. "Good. But we can't let them leave." "Why not?" Medik Choinari asked. She was exhausted from treating wounded scouts for days. "Isn't it good if they go? If they leave, they'll come back stronger," Tae-ho explained. "We need to hurt them so badly that they never want to return. And more importantly, we need to keep them here until our fleet arrives." He turned to his officers. "The enemy's dropships are gathered at the landing zone. Our infiltration teams reached them yesterday. Yuna, give the order." Lieutenant Park Yuna nodded and spoke into her radio. "Teams Alpha through Delta. Execute Operation Grounded." 20 kilometers away, the Kalari landing zone exploded. The retreating soldiers watched in horror as their dropships burned. Dozens of vessels, their only way off the planet, were now nothing but flames and twisted metal. Sabotage teams had placed explosives on every ship during the night. Commander Vrex fell to his knees. "No," he whispered. No. They were trapped. Stranded on a hostile planet with an enemy that would not stop hunting them. Their orbital support was useless because human EMP satellites had disabled the flagship's targeting systems days ago. The Great Kaleri Invasion Force was now just a group of frightened survivors with nowhere to go. 3 days passed. The Kalari huddled around their destroyed landing zone, building makeshift defenses, trying to survive. Human attacks continued day and night. Small groups of scouts struck from every direction, disappearing before the Kaleri could respond. On the 6th day, something changed. A human soldier walked calmly toward the Kaleri defensive line. She was alone. She carried no visible weapon. She held a white flag above her head. The Kaleri soldiers pointed their weapons at her but did not fire. They were too curious, too desperate for anything different. Private Song Yoon-bi stopped 100 meters from the enemy line. Her young face showed no fear. She had seen too much death this week to be afraid anymore. "I have a message for your prince," she called out in the Kalari language. Human scouts learned many things, including alien tongues. "Our main fleet arrived yesterday. 2 million soldiers. 50 warships. They are in orbit right now. You have lost." Commander Vex pushed through his soldiers to face the human girl. "You are lying," he said, but his voice was uncertain. Yun-bi shook her head. "Look up." Vex looked at the sky, and he saw them. Human warships, dozens of them, moving across the clouds. The fleet had arrived. "You fought well." Yoon-bi continued. "Your soldiers are brave, but you are fighting our scout unit? 8,000 scouts who were sent to slow you down until our real army got here?" She paused, letting the words sink in. "You lost half your army to reconnaissance troops. Imagine what our real soldiers will do." Rex's weapon fell from his shaking hands. Your prince can surrender now, Yunbi said, or he can watch his remaining soldiers die. The choice is his. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the forest as easily as she had appeared. That night, Prince Vorin sent a message of surrender. The war was over. The Kalari had lost, and the galaxy would never forget what had happened on Earth 7. The Kalari. Surrender ceremony took place on a quiet morning. Human soldiers stood in neat rows, their uniforms clean, their weapons polished. They looked professional and calm. Nothing like the nightmares that had haunted the Kalari army for over a week. Prince Vorin walked forward slowly. His silver armor was dented and dirty. His once proud face was hollow with exhaustion and defeat. Behind him came the survivors of his great invasion force. Less than 90,000 soldiers remained from the original 300,000. General Kang Junho of the Human Defense Force accepted the surrender document. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He did not gloat. He did not mock the defeated prince. He fought with courage, General Kang said simply. Your soldiers were brave. We respect that. Vorin looked at him with confusion. He had expected anger, mockery, maybe even cruelty. Instead, he found only quiet professionalism. How? Vorin asked. His voice cracked. How did you do this? We came with the mightiest army in our empire's history. We had superior numbers, superior technology, superior training. How did 8,000 of your people destroy us? General Kang glanced to his left. Captain Kim Tai-ho stood there looking tired but satisfied. Beside him were the surviving members of Scout Unit 7, Lieutenant Park Unit, Sergeant Lee Sun-woo, Corporal Han Min-ho, Private Beek Ji-woo, Medek Choi Nari, Sergeant Yoon Do-yoon, Private Song Yoon-bi, and hundreds more. They had lost over 400 of their own during the battle. Each death weighed heavily on them, but they had accomplished something incredible. Something that would be remembered forever. They are scouts, General Kang said. Their job is not to win battles. Their job is to survive, to gather information, and to create opportunities. You gave them an opportunity. What? Vorin stared at the group of tired humans. These were the demons that had haunted his nightmares. These were the invisible killers that had destroyed his army from the shadows. They looked so ordinary. Young men and women in simple uniforms? Nothing special about them. And that was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. What will happen to us? Vorin asked. You will be returned to your empire, General Kang replied. Your soldiers will go home. There will be no executions, no prison camps. We have no desire to continue this conflict. Vorin blinked in surprise. You are letting us go? Just like that? We defend our homes, the general said. That is all. Go back to your people, Prince Vorin. Tell them what happened here. And perhaps the next time your empire considers attacking humanity, they will remember this day. The Kalari survivors were loaded onto human transport ships and taken to the edge of human space. From there, their own vessels picked them up and carried them home. Prince Vorin stood on the bridge of the rescue ship, watching the human worlds disappear behind him. He would never forget the things he had seen. The explosions in the night. The soldiers dying all around him. The young human girl who told him he had lost to scouts. Scouts, just scouts. The journey home took 3 weeks. When Vorin finally arrived at the Kalari homeworld, he expected punishment. He expected disgrace. He was not disappointed. Emperor Drella sat on his great throne, surrounded by the lords and generals of the empire. His silver face showed no emotion as his son knelt before him. You took 300,000 soldiers to conquer one small colony, the emperor said. His voice echoed through the silent hall. You returned with less than 90,000. You accomplished nothing. You captured no territory. You killed few enemies. You brought only shame. Vorin kept his head down. Yes, father. I am removing your title. You are no longer a prince of this empire. You will live as a common citizen? Perhaps in time you may earn back some small measure of honor. Vorin accepted this without argument. He had expected worse, but before he left the throne room, he stood and faced the assembled lords and generals. These were the most powerful people in the Kalari Empire. They had commanded vast armies. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They looked at him with contempt. "You think I am a failure," Vorin said. "You think I am weak and foolish? Perhaps you are right. But I must tell you something before I go. Something you need to understand." Paused, making sure he had their attention. "Do not attack the humans. Ever." Whispers spread through the hall. Several generals laughed. "We faced their scouts," Vorin continued. "Not their army. Not their elite forces. Their scouts. Reconnaissance troops. 8,000 soldiers whose main job is to look around and report back. And those 8,000 scouts destroyed us." He looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. "They fight without honor. They attack from shadows. They poison our supplies and destroy our equipment. They never sleep. They never rest. They hit us again and again, from every direction, at every hour of the day and night. And the worst part?" His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "They were laughing. In the middle of battle, covered in the blood of their enemies, they were laughing." The room was silent now. No one was laughing anymore. "Their real army numbers in the millions," Vorin said. "Trained soldiers with equipment designed for full warfare. If their scouts could destroy 300,000 of our warriors, imagine what their true military force could do to us." He walked toward the door, then stopped one last time. "I was a fool who thought humans were weak. I paid for that mistake with my title and my honor. If you are wise, you will learn from my suffering. Leave the humans alone, or one day they will come for us, and no one will survive." Vorin left the throne room. He would never return, but his words stayed behind. They spread through the empire like ripples on water. Stories were told and retold. The tales grew with each telling. The 8,000 human scouts became demons, ghosts, monsters from the darkest nightmares, and eventually, these stories spread beyond the Kalari Empire. Trading ships carried the tales to other worlds. Diplomats whispered them in secret meetings. Military leaders studied the battle reports with growing concern. Across the galaxy, a new understanding began to form. Humanity was not just another young species finding its way among the stars. Humanity was something different, something dangerous. On Earth 7, the colony went back to normal life. The damaged buildings were repaired. The scars of battle slowly healed. Life continued.